So, since that I have you, let's kick it off.
Okay, great.
So, the obvious question, right? How did you decide to form this band?
Actually, Herman reached out to me April of 2021, and surprising my messenger, and said, "Hi, Dave, I've been thinking about this for a few years. Would you be interested in trying to write some songs together?" And I said, "Of course." He sent me 2 tracks, and they inspired me immediately. I wrote the lyrics and melodies, went right in the studio, and sent them back 2 days later. And I got a film of him on WhatsApp doing this, tapping his feet in the studio, going, "This sounds great." And from there, we just slowly developed and kept writing. And here you have it, a great album, Blood In, Blood Out.
So why did you name it? Who had the idea of the name, Iron Allies?
Herman actually did. We were searching for names in that. He goes, "How about Iron Allies?" And I said, "Well, there's Iron Savior, there's Iron blah, blah, blah." And he goes, "I don't care. I like it." I said, "Okay." Well, basically, it's kind of like we're all allies. We all live in different countries. And, you know, I'm an American living in Italy. He's a German. And we have an Italian, Francesco Jovino. So it's kind of goes that way. Metal allies, yeah.
And did it make only sense for you and Herman to look into the other bands they have for the rest of the lineup, right?
Well, you know, I did Blacklist Utopia, my solo album with Malte and Francesco. And we had gone through some ideas on players. And he was playing with Michael Pesin in Victory and his solo band.
Correct.
And after going through a bunch of knuckleheads, and I was thinking about, I want people that I know I can tour with and work with. I said, "Why don't we just put these guys all together and be the band?" And he said, "Yeah, good idea." Because everybody knew each other, no personal problems, no egos, and it worked.
Yeah, I was under the impression that you didn't even search for other members. You said, "Well, we have this gentleman."
We did. We actually went through a lot of people. We talked to, God, I couldn't even tell you how many famous bass players and drummers, and I said, "This is getting ridiculous. You know, we know each other. We know we're comfortable with one another. Everybody's a great musician. Let's just do it."
Absolutely.
And I actually recommended Malte to play in Victory for Herman because he was playing with the guy from Jaded Heart, I think, was his bass player. And he said, "Well, I use him in Herman Frank's solo, but maybe I should find someone else. What do you think about Malte?" And I said, "I've toured all over the place with Malte. He's a great player and a great human being." And he took him in Victory. And then, you know, Iron Allies started being worked on, and all of a sudden he ended up with us with that too.
Okay, so before going out to find the rest of the band members, did you have already the music, or did the other guys participated in the songwriting?
Herman and I, we're the leaders of the band, and we are the writers. Not to say take anything away from the players on the record, because the drums are live, the guitars, a lot of the vocals are recorded together. But yeah, we're the basic nucleus, the songwriting team that wrote all the material. We had a little input on Friesen from Stefan Schwarzman. That was a thing that Herman had worked on years ago. I think the band was called Panzer. So we credited Stefan just to be nice, because he was there for the beginning. And John Wild, a friend of mine, I write lyrics with him sometimes. He wrote a few lines in Evil the Gun. So I gave him credit on that, you know. It's human. I mean, the people have stolen my ideas and used them, and I don't see my name, and it really hurts.
Oh, yeah. So, with both of you being in Accept, although in different timelines, do you think that only that piece of data, let's say, sets the expectations for Iron Allies without even taking your music?
I think, yeah, that's an honest answer, an honest question. If you listen to the album, there's colors, you know, maybe even as far back as some of Restless and Wild, some of the riffs. But those were bred from, you know, Judas Priest actually accept. And when we sat down and we were hanging out together, talking about it, we said, what are we going to do? What kind of metal album do we want to create? And I said, from where I came from, the British invasion. I'm a UFO fan, a Priest fan, a Rainbow fan, Maiden. I said, that's what we should be. And he said, perfect. That's who I am. I'm not going to play anything less than traditional heavy metal. That's right. What I am, David. And I think he's one of the greatest heavy metal guitar players around. Herman is classic with his riffs.
I agree.
And it's sad because in Accept, I think he was overlooked for a lot of his contribution, especially live. I mean, he's great.
So, do you have the album ready before shopping around for a record deal?
Well, we had all the demos recorded together, and they were pretty damn good. And then we had offers from 4 labels, I think, all big ones. And the family of AFM, who I've actually always wanted to be part of the label because I see they work hard for their metal bands. They just said, we'll take it now. We'll put our arms around it. We offer you this. We'll get behind it. And they have been fabulous for us. So when we signed the deal, we went to Horus Studios in Hanover. Mm-hmm. And Francesco and I went up and we recorded all the drums live, the rhythms. And I recorded a lot of the vocals because we had written, I think we had 8 songs, 7 or 8 songs written. So I wrote another 4 or 5 with Herman and I recorded there, finalized the album and all the harmonies and extra overdubs for guitars. And I think Herman wasn't satisfied when he heard the basic tracks were done with his rhythm tracks. He said, I have to do my guitars again. And I think he went in and over 6 days re-recorded all his guitars because it was so live and real,
Wow. And Herman did the production with Arnie, right?
With Arne, yeah, they did the engineering basically. Herman is the producer of the record, and he engineered Arne Norland. And then we were talking about an outside mixer, so we hired Dennis Ward.
Correct.
And because I had been an album with Wicked Sensation about a year before, and I liked what he did. And I worked with Dennis on a few other things, and he speaks fluent German as well. So it was the obvious communication reality that they could sit down and speak to each other. I think Dennis did a great job on this record.
Yeah, I believe that Dennis has the ear for both hard rock and both the classic heavy metal. So it's the best set of ears to bring those two together.
He's a great singer and a great musician, too. I mean, he's a musical producer.
Yes. We talked about the record deal. We talked about the music direction. So how do you consider Iron Allies as a one-time project, or this is something that you would like to progress and move on?
I have made many comments publicly that I was tired of being in bands. It's a difficult life to be in a band. It's hard to keep the same thoughts in the group together, the same members. And I burned out. So I went solo. I did Resilient Heart. I did Cacophony of Souls, Blacklist Utopia. But I can say, honestly, this is a band. We have a real promoter. And our goal is, right now we're looking at all the festivals next year and probably a venue tour in the early part of 2023. And it's been amazing. The combination of 2 of us musically is great, but it's also a great business move. You've got 2 well-known guys, 3 well-known guys with Francesco. It creates an interest, let's just say.
Yes.
And in these days, you can use all the help you can get, to be honest. But you first have to have a great album.
Correct.
You have to be sincere. You got to be sincere.
Yeah, and especially after the 2 years of this pandemic, I think now it has created some sort of a bottleneck, right? You have so many albums coming out, and then I'm sure 2023 will be crazy touring if everything goes well, right? And now you will have a gazillion bands trying to tour. The venues are not, it's a finite number. We don't have enough venues. I have no idea economically how that will be challenging for the fans, right? How many shows can one go?
all of it. I mean, here in Italy, there's a show every night, and every club that does still survive this pandemic. The problem is, say you have one band on Thursday night and Friday night, let's say Testament is playing. The Thursday night band is kind of known, and then you have Testament. A normal human being is going to say, well, I'm going to save my money for Testament or UFO or, I mean, and the bottleneck is, I've been talking about this all day. I mean, you're absolutely right. Everybody's catching up from 2 years ago and fulfilling their contracts, and every club that I know has a band every night. And they're not doing good numbers because there's just too much out there.
Right.
And as you said, everybody recorded albums during the pandemic, and now that everybody's free, they release in July, August, September, October, November, trying to get ready for the Christmas selling season. So it's created a big mess. And then you have the shortage of plastics. What makes plastic? Oil. So there's no vinyl supplies. They're behind 6 months. You name the problems, they're there.
Right.
The economy.
Yeah.
Getting mail, getting post here, or me shipping to the United States,
Oh, man.
bands.
Oh, that's insane. That's insane. The shipping costs
6 weeks, 8 weeks. Yeah. I mean, the price to mail a CD is, I don't want to put it on the fans, but the charge is just to mail it. If I sell a CD for €15, I make nothing because I mailed it and basically spent that money for the CD.
Right.
So it's putting pressure. Who's on the most important part of this thing happening is the fans. Without the fans able to buy it, there's no business.
Right. And hearing us talking about all these things that the last 2 years have brought us kind of made me think of the lyrics that you wrote for Full of Surprises, right? Because when you hear surprise, you expect something good, but you're not talking about good things on that, right?
No. I can wake up this morning at my list. Here's one with you. The interview list says, Metal Kaoz, interview Herman Frank. Dustin Hardman's writing me going, where are you? Do you have the Skype number? I go, what are you talking about? It's your interview. That's a surprise. It turns into a positive, but in my business, and you're being a journalist, you understand it's chaos. I
Hence the name.
My morning off. Huh?
Hence the name of the site.
Hence the name. I can wake up in a positive mood and start writing a song, and literally on a phone call about something that doesn't matter turns into something that does matter. And I'm like, why are we talking about this? So that's what inspired it. Plus, the songs from System of a Down, the phrasing.
Yes.
And that was one of the final songs that Herman showed me musically. And I just heard System of a Down in my head. And I went, if I attacked it like a machine gun, that would really work. Which was strange. We released as a first video. It didn't do as well out of the gate as Blood In, Blood Out. Blood In, Blood Out is climbing daily. It seems to have struck a chord with the fans more than Full of Surprises.
Although I would not expect to be talking with David Reece about System of a Down.
Well, I was in LA when those guys were playing clubs, and they started to move up. I thought they were one of the weirdest bands I'd ever seen in my life, but there was something unique about them and their timing. When I saw them, I think I saw them at the Palace, and I was like, what in the hell is this?
It's going on, right?
And it's very Armenian-influenced music with the time signatures, and the metalheads loved it. Very aggressive, very melodic.
And another one that I don't have the lyrics with me, so I'm trying to understand just by hearing the music. Truth Never Mattered. So what is this? Is this... I guess it's a reflection of the world we're living, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because truth never matters.
There's one thing I'll tell you about rock and roll. I spent the first 20 years of my career afraid to say I disagree. Because, when you sign a major record company deal, which I have, and they're throwing a lot of money at you, the last thing you want to do is disagree. So you play, it's a lie, everything they're saying. And if you speak the truth, they say, there's the door.
Mm.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And I've realized that over my life that the easiest thing for me to say at one period was, no, I'm not going to do that. And the amazing thing was, is as soon as I said no, they would turn around and go, okay, what's it going to take to make you happy? And I thought, I've wasted 10 years of my life or so of being frightened of what? The truth is the truth. This is a stupid idea. That's a stupid investment. What does that do for my career and the group's career? And tell me, because you're wearing a suit with a tie, you think you know everything because they had success in the 70s with Led Zeppelin or the Eagles. Chimes change all the time. But I'm somebody who believes in the truth. But it seems like people would rather you lie to them than tell them exactly the truth. You know, if you say, you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you what I think and how I feel. Now, you have to be delicate with some people, but the truth always prevails, in my opinion, but it doesn't seem to matter. And then I threw in the Queen answer, liar. You know, that was my little, I'm going to do a tribute to Freddie there with a big harmony. But I don't know, it just came to me one day. I was in Denmark when I wrote that lyric and melody, and it just struck me when I heard that guitar riff.
So all the lyrics that we hear in the new album are fresh, right? Or do you have like a library of lyrics?
I do have libraries, but this one, pretty much fresh. I mean, I may look at a page and see a line that rhymes and go, that would fit that story. I'll take from there, but rarely did I do it on this album. I'm writing a kind of a solo album right now, and I'm kind of deep in my head with this stuff, and it's pretty heavy lyrics, but I try to add a little humor to it and leave it subjective, like Truth Never Mattered or Evil the Gun. Evil the Gun is about a gun talking to a man. I'm a Second Amendment supporter. I like to hunt and fish. That's what I did in America. That's my sporting activity. And to have somebody said guns are the reason why, well, for instance, Chicago, it's not the reason. It's the psyche of the human population that's changed. There's no value on human life. So basically the gun is talking to you like a mechanism. I'm a machine, but you make the choice to pull that trigger. I don't tell you to do it.
So I like that the path that you gave me. So you're still, because in the beginning you said that you want to concentrate on Iron Allies, but now you said that you're working on a solo album. So, and you still, I guess, are you involved in John Steele or even Weekend Sensation, Gypsy Road? I don't know if those are still active.
No, you know, I kind of contradicted myself, I suppose. During the lockdown, I got inundated with offers to sing on records. Everybody, like you said, was trapped at home. And John Steele, I had been asked to sing when Duty wasn't available. They called me and said, can you do these gigs? Well, we did a gig with Hammerfall one night. It was a huge auditorium in somewhere in Bulgaria, Plovdiv, I think, or Sofia. And they said, would you be interested in singing on our next album? And I said, well, maybe. But I didn't take it serious. And they said, well, Doogie charges this much and we can't afford it. Can you do it for this? And I said, yeah, I'll do it. So I went back to Bulgaria and wrote the lyrics with John Wilde, my friend. And we recorded it there. And it was strange because all the equipment was like 1980s Russian style. It was a decrepit old studio. But somehow we made it work. But no, I'm not really in that band. I just returned doing 3 gigs with them. And you know what? They're wonderful people, but it's nothing that I would want to be part of full time. And Wicked Sensation was a hired gun thing. I think the band has since just broken up. I don't know what's happened to them. I don't speak to them. I did an album called Highway Sentinels with a collective. Have you heard of it?
No.
Jimmy Waldo from Alcatraz is a friend of mine. And we admire each other now for 30, 40 years. And another man named Steve Rosen, who wrote for Guitar Player magazine and Rolling Stone, had interviewed everybody, Blackmore, and all of them over his career. And he said, one day I'm going to make an album, and I would like you to play lead on it. And a lot of the guitar players, yeah. Well, Jimmy called me and said, Steve's ready to do this record. I'm like, okay. And I said, what do you want me to do? Write the lyrics? He said, no, I want you to write the lyrics and sing on it. I love your voice. I said, okay. Who's playing guitar? He said, Joe Satriani, Paul Gilbert, Bumblefoot. Kane Roberts. I said, what? And he explained how it happened. And I said, you know what? I want to be part of this and be around rock royalty, yeah? And it's a great album, but the mysterious thing is, even with all the star power, nobody noticed it. It came out and nobody cared. I'm not in that band full time. It's just a bunch of great guys. But what happened after that was Graham had left Alcatraz, and they called me and said, we want you to be the singer. I said, no way. I don't want to be anybody's replacement singer ever again. I did it in Bonfire and I did it at Accept, and I'm not doing it now. And so I recommended Doogie, and Doogie fit perfectly.
Yes, and yes, it makes absolutely sense what you said about being sometimes, when you called upon to fill some big shoes or someone who has been connected to the trademark sound of a band, it's unfair.
Yeah,
it's unfair.
I mean, when I didn't hire myself in Accept.
Correct.
They hired me. Mm-hmm. They hired me.
Of course.
They made the choice because of, the business suits and all. Let's break America finally. We're selling 400,000 records. I'm grateful to the end of my life because I'm talking to people like you because of that. But it wasn't all my fault. That was a business decision. I mean, it was either they loved me or they hated me. And the weird thing about Eat the Heat is, it's more popular now than it was 30 years ago. I still play those songs live. It's amazing. They want to hear Hellhammer, Generation Clash, D-Train, and Ecstasy every time I play. So I add it in my set, solo.
Yeah, because that time, nobody was focused on the music. They were focused on these huge change in the lineup. So that takes... It's the same thing with Bruce Dickinson. Yeah, it's the same thing with Bruce Dickinson and Blaze Bayley, right? No one paid attention to the music that they made with Blaze. But anyways, that's... But
look what he's doing now. Blaze is playing more Iron Maiden songs and songs he wasn't even part of in his set live.
Correct.
Blaze is an amazing working heart. His ethic is amazing. That guy plays Bruce Dickinson songs.
I agree.
And I admire Blaze to the end of the world. He actually sang with John Steele for a while.
Really?
I mean, he's a working guy, but he knows what people want to hear.
Yep.
That period of his life now seems to be more important than it was in the 90s.
Last question. You said in the beginning that you were talking about touring and seeing what are the opportunities. So do you know, if anything, any tour that may happen next year? Because this year might be tough, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the festival season looks really good for us in Europe. There's a lot of interest because of people like you. The media is swarming this thing. I actually have this secret undercover of doing promotion for my last solo album, and people had already heard about it. So the buzz is there. We have a great booking agent in Berlin. Offers are on the table right now. And they think that after the record released and all the magazines and these interviews are out, it'll strengthen that opportunity for us. And having 2x Accept numbers doesn't hurt.
Of course, of course.
Look at Peter. I mean, Peter's touring with U.D.O right now because Tillin is ill. There's more people in my band from Accept and in U.D.O's band from Accept than the original Accept now.
That's true.
It's a strange circle of family members, right? It's funny. People laugh about it, and I never even considered it till the other day. I went, wow, that's true, man. Somebody said about Blood In, Blood Out. I read a comment on the I don't know if you saw it on YouTube. Somebody said, had David Reece done Blood In, Blood Out with Accept,
I read that.
Producer and real drums, this would have been one of the biggest Accept albums ever released. And I had to laugh. I said, wow, I never thought of that. So it's a compliment, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. So I hope that you will bring Iron Allies here in the States.
Yeah.
That will be amazing.
We're talking to Canada right now. And if we do Canada, there's 6 dates on offer, kind of on paper. The right thing to do would be come down through New York and then hit the Midwest, because that's a large market for Herman and I. So it would only make sense to continue southward and westward. And me going back into the Montana area where I'm from and all that now, I mean, that's what we want to do. We want to go to Texas. I mean, we want to go to all the rockin' cities we can.
So you're talking about headlining?
Yeah, we would headline.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure the set list
But
will...
unless a larger act said, we want to take them out as a strong support, of course we would consider it if we could do it financially.
Yeah.
That's another monster that you have to let out of the box. I mean, is it affordable? I have friends that were going to Brazil, and a famous band, they canceled the whole tour last week. The price of the flights has gone up 4 times.
Oh, yeah.
It literally ate up all of their budget for the touring, and they just said, we can't do it. I think it was 20 shows.
Wow.
South America.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I hope that, as you said, the album release, the interviews, the reviews will create a buzz, and we will see you guys here in Chicago live.
Please come and see me if we play. Come and shake my hand, and
absolutely,
let's sit down and have a coffee and chat, man.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for all your help, and thank you to everybody in Chicago. We'll see you as soon as possible.